Picture yourself standing in the grand halls of Renaissance Florence, where princes plotted and philosophers pondered the nature of power itself. Among the stone corridors and candlelit chambers, certain men possessed an inexplicable magnetism, not born of wealth alone, nor title, nor even exceptional beauty. These men commanded attention without demanding it, attracted loyalty without begging for it, and inspired devotion without performing for it. What they understood, and what has been deliberately obscured through centuries of misleading advice, was a singular truth. Genuine power never announces itself, never pursues, never pleads. It simply exists, and everything else arranges itself in its orbit. Today, I'm going to share with you a principle so potent that it was concealed in the private correspondence of history's greatest strategists. Too dangerous to print in books meant for public consumption. This isn't another collection of pickup lines or social tricks. This is the reclamation of your natural authority. The resurrection of an ancient understanding about human desire that modern culture has systematically destroyed. What you're about to discover will contradict everything society has taught you about attraction. It will feel uncomfortable at first, perhaps even wrong. But by the time we reach the end of this journey together, you'll understand why you've struggled, why certain men seem to effortlessly command feminine attention, and most importantly, how to join their ranks. The moment. Everything changes. There exists a singular moment, one you've experienced countless times, when a woman's gaze finds yours across a crowded space. Perhaps it's at a gathering, perhaps at your workplace, perhaps in some ordinary setting made extraordinary by that connection. Her eyes lock with yours for barely a second, perhaps even less. Yet that fragment of time stretches into eternity, freezing the world around you. In that suspended moment, you feel something primal stir within your chest, a hollow sensation in your stomach, an electric current running through your limbs. Your entire being urges you forward, as though she were the moon and you merely the tide, powerless against her gravitational pull. Every fiber of your body screams at you to close the distance, to speak, to demonstrate your worthiness, to prove yourself valuable in her eyes. And here, in this critical instant, most men make a fatal error, one they don't even recognize as a mistake. They surrender to that impulse immediately. They cross the room with steps that betray slight uncertainty, their minds racing through rehearsed opening lines, their shoulders pulled back just a bit too deliberately, trying to project height, confidence, importance. They become performers on a stage they didn't realize existed, desperately seeking applause they'll never receive. Every word becomes calculated for maximum approval. Every gesture becomes choreographed for optimal impression. They search her face constantly, hunting for signs of validation, terrified of disapproval. And, in that very act of pursuit, they hemorrhage every ounce of power they possessed, without even understanding what's happening. In the minutes ahead, I'll unveil something that powerful men throughout history kept locked away in private writings. A method never published in famous treatises, precisely because its effectiveness made it too valuable to share openly. You'll come to understand the psychological trap that renders you invisible to the very women who captivate you most. You'll witness this principle applied in 3 distinct scenarios that will revolutionize how you move through the social world. And you'll discover a complete framework that generates attraction so profound. She'll find herself thinking about you at the most unexpected moments, unable to explain why. The truth nobody dares speak aloud is elegantly simple. Whoever chases becomes the subordinate. Whoever attracts becomes the sovereign. If that statement alone has shaken everything you believed about human connection, show your engagement right now and continue this journey with me. The perfect metaphor, gravity. Itself, consider gravity as the ultimate example of attraction done right. Most people imagine that drawing someone closer requires movement toward them, orbiting around them like a desperate satellite, performing elaborate dances of approach, making yourself perpetually visible. But the genuine gravitational giants of our universe, the stars, the planets, the black holes, they move toward nothing. Everything else inevitably spirals toward them, pulled by an invisible force that cannot be resisted. This invisible gravitational force, we're going to construct it within you today. Or piece by deliberate piece, allow me to illuminate precisely where the fundamental problem lies, the error. Nobody has identified before because it's buried so deep beneath. Layers of cultural programming that it's become completely invisible. The devastating mistake. A message written in energy the climb. Error committed by 97 out of every 100 men cuts so deeply into their behavior that they cannot perceive it anymore. Every single time you attempt to impress someone, every instance where you modify your natural behavior to please another, every moment you chase external approval, you're broadcasting a subliminal message of catastrophic proportions. You are worth more than I am. This message never gets spoken in words. It's purely energetic, entirely unconscious, completely instinctive. It encodes itself in your body language the instant you approach her first. It reveals itself in the slightly accelerated rhythm of your speech as you scramble to maintain her attention. It appears in the way your eyes constantly dart back to her face after every comment, seeking confirmation that you're saying the right things. These behaviors remain invisible to you. But to her, they blaze like enormous neon signs in the darkness, impossible to miss. The ordinary man exhausts himself endlessly. He plans elaborate strategies, commits opening lines to memory, studies female psychology like it's an academic subject, purchases clothing designed to impress, and reshapes his personality like clay, molding himself into whatever shape he believes will gain approval. The result? Women who tolerate his presence briefly, but never desire him deeply. The strategic man, by contrast, grasps that authentic attraction never results from visible effort. It's the reflection of genuine abundance. The result? Women who pursue him with an intensity that even his closest companions struggle to comprehend. The consequences of this error accumulate and compound over time, like interest on a debt you never knew you'd taken on. In the immediate term, conversations that slowly suffocate, phone numbers that never respond, dates that lead absolutely nowhere. In the middle term, relationships where you always contribute more, where you always compensate for deficiencies, where you perpetually teeter on the edge of losing her. In the long term, an identity constructed entirely around emotional scarcity, a life filled with unfulfilled longing, a quiet resignation to being good enough while never being truly desired. Why does this pattern repeat so reliably? The answer lies encoded in our most primitive neural architecture, circuits that evolved millions of years before rational thought emerged. The biology of attraction. Why pursuit fails. The female brain developed specifically to detect genuine value, not performed value. When you chase, you activate what I call the low-value circuit in her subconscious mind. When you try too hard, you're essentially confessing scarcity. This isn't a conscious decision on her part. It's an automatic response programmed by countless generations of evolution, designed to identify carriers of superior genetics. Think of it like attempting to convince someone that a counterfeit diamond is authentic. You might craft the most persuasive story, create the perfect lighting, use the most eloquent words imaginable. But the moment a trained expert examines it closely, the entire illusion shatters instantly. You cannot argue against subconscious perception of value. It operates beneath the level of conscious thought. The ordinary man believes he must demonstrate his worth through visible acts of pursuit, constant messages, immediate availability, permanent attention, endless effort. The strategic man understands that authentic value communicates itself precisely through the absence of any need to prove it. Full presence when present. Complete absence when absent. Nothing in between. You might recognize these patterns woven through your own history. You remember perfectly that conversation which started so promisingly, her laughing at your comments, displaying every sign of interest, only to cool mysteriously when you began showing your own interest more openly. Or that relationship where initially she pursued you relentlessly, sent messages constantly, sought your attention at every opportunity, until she finally possessed your attention completely. And gradually, all her interest evaporated like morning dew under the desert sun. That woman who awakens something inexplicable within you, who occupies your thoughts at random moments, to whom you always respond immediately, while she answers hours later. And still, you cannot help waiting for her next breadcrumb of attention. Like a starving man grateful for scraps. It's like watching a tiger chase a mechanical lure in endless circles. Running itself to exhaustion, never understanding the lure is programmed never to be caught. Every time you chase, every time you try visibly, every time you display more interest than you receive, you're running in that same invisible circle, exhausting yourself for nothing. The ordinary man adjusts his entire life to create opportunities for interaction, changes his routes, frequents certain places, modifies his habits and schedule. The strategic man lives centered on his mission and purpose, and interactions arise organically within his authentic, unfabricated reality, the hidden cost. Nobody mentions, but the truly devastating cost extends beyond specific relationships. With every interaction where you chase validation, you're reinforcing a self-image of scarcity within your own mind. You're becoming neurologically programmed as a man whose central identity revolves around the constant need for external approval. And it's not only she who perceives this energy radiating from you. Your entire social environment picks up on it. Your professional network, your personal relationships, everyone around you. Most destructively, it shapes how you perceive yourself subconsciously, beneath your conscious awareness. While the ordinary man exists in a perpetual state of emotional hunger, always seeking the next validation, the next approval, the next confirmation of his worth, the strategic man lives in a state of internal abundance, where external reactions become secondary to his inherent value. But identifying the problem represents only the beginning of this journey. Now I'm going to reveal the exact technique, step by methodical step, that you must apply to completely invert this dynamic and become the gravitational center that attracts effortlessly. The central technique, magnetic void. The core technique bears the name magnetic void, and it operates directly on the primitive neural circuits governing human attraction. This isn't manipulation. It's strategic positioning in the theater of human interaction. First, you consciously identify every pursuit behavior in your current repertoire and suspend it completely. This creates an energetic void that becomes magnetic precisely because it's authentic, not performative. You're not pretending. You're genuinely redirecting your energy. Then you redirect that liberated energy toward your central purpose and personal mission, creating a legitimate gravitational core around which your life revolves. Meanwhile, you maintain a fully conscious presence in every interaction without filtering it through the need for specific outcomes. You stop trying to control where things go. Finally, you allow attraction to manifest naturally without forcing it. You recognize that gravity doesn't require effort to function. It simply exists, and everything else responds accordingly. Most men apply superficial techniques powered by scarcity. You apply strategic presence powered by abundance. The difference isn't subtle. It's absolute application, the workplace scenario. Imagine this situation unfolding at your workplace. You're participating in an important meeting, and the woman who attracts you is present. The conference room is perfectly lit, presentations projected on the wall, the aroma of fresh coffee drifting through the air. You notice her glancing in your direction periodically. The ordinary man immediately adjusts his behavior. He speaks somewhat louder, makes comments designed to impress, constantly monitors her reaction after every statement. He positions himself strategically near her during the break, manufactures excuses to initiate conversation. On the surface, he appears professional, but the underlying energy is transparent as glass. The desperate need for validation. The result manifests immediately, though invisibly. She subconsciously perceives the pursuit, and her interest decreases proportionally to your effort. You, by contrast, remain completely focused on the actual content of the meeting. Your posture radiates relaxed power. Your comments prove precise and valuable, not to impress her, but to genuinely contribute to the team. You don't seek her gaze. You don't alter your path to pass nearby. You don't fabricate reasons to interact. During the break, you authentically converse with whoever is relevant to the meeting's objectives. Or you simply enjoy your coffee in peaceful silence, if that's what feels natural to you in that moment. Then it happens. The reversal. She begins finding reasons to approach you. She asks questions she could ask anyone else. She positions herself strategically within your line of sight. The void you've created has generated genuine curiosity, authentic interest that she cannot explain. You didn't chase, and precisely because of that, you attracted. Because whoever seeks approval repels it. Whoever exists fully within his own reality magnetizes it. Application. The social setting. Now let's transport this same principle into a personal setting. You're attending a party, music playing at a volume that permits conversation without shouting, dim lights creating atmosphere, different social clusters scattered throughout the space. You see a woman who instantly attracts you, triggering that familiar hollow sensation in your stomach. The ordinary man immediately begins crafting strategies of approach. He calculates angles, rehearses opening lines in his mind, perhaps takes a drink to calm his nerves, consults friends about what to do. Finally, he approaches with energy that feels slightly tense. Disguised initially as confidence, the conversation flows, but he's constantly evaluating her reaction, adjusting according to her responses, working hard to maintain her interest. Even if he successfully obtains her number, the following messages receive replies that grow further apart in time until they vanish completely, like echoes fading in a canyon. You, applying the magnetic void principle, enter fully present in your experience. You genuinely enjoy the conversations you're having with anyone. You don't monitor her location constantly, nor calculate optimal moments of approach. You're completely immersed in your authentic social reality. If circumstances create a natural interaction, you maintain that same complete presence. Total attention when she speaks. Steady eye contact that's never invasive. Genuine responses with no hidden agenda whatsoever. The result disorients anyone observing the dynamic. She begins to gravitate toward your space. She finds reasons to initiate conversation. Her signs of interest become increasingly evident, almost unconsciously displayed. You're not chasing attraction. You're allowing it to occur naturally, like water finding its level. True mastery lies not in what you do, but in what you stop doing. Application. The digital context. In the digital realm where most modern interactions begin, this principle amplifies exponentially. Imagine you've obtained her number, or her social media contact. The digital temptation becomes immense, almost overwhelming. The ordinary man immediately succumbs to constant availability. He checks repeatedly to see if she's viewed his messages, replies instantly no matter what he's doing, no matter how it disrupts his day, crafts texts carefully to maintain her interest, overreacts to every photo she posts, every story she shares. Each notification from her triggers a dopamine spike, reinforcing the pursuit pattern deeper into his nervous system. What begins as fluid conversation slowly transforms into something one-sided until it fades away completely, leaving him confused about what went wrong. You, applying this principle digitally, maintain the same standard of presence and absence. When you engage, you're completely present. Considered responses, genuine conversation, real interest, but you're not permanently available. You have a life built around your purpose and mission that exists independently of her attention. You don't monitor her social media activity obsessively. You don't react compulsively to every post. You don't shape your digital rhythm around her virtual existence. The pattern that emerges defies all conventional intuition. She begins initiating conversations more frequently. Her responses become longer, more thoughtful. Her emotional investment visibly increases with each exchange. The space you've created becomes a void that she seeks to fill willingly, almost desperately. Those who remain always available communicate a lack of value. Those who live fully radiate irresistible abundance. 3 critical errors that sabotage everything. Pay close attention here, because there are 3 critical errors that can completely sabotage this technique, destroying everything you're building. The first error: mistaking the magnetic void for artificial indifference or calculated coldness. This happens when you try to project disinterest instead of cultivating genuine interest in your own life. The result is an incongruent energy that she perceives immediately as strategic falseness, as manipulation, rather than authenticity. The correction is crucial. It's not about pretending not to care. It's about redirecting your care toward your personal purpose, actually caring deeply about something other than her attention. The second error: applying the technique with resentment or from unhealed emotional wounds. Many men use these strategies as reactions to past rejections, executing them with vengeful energy underneath. That toxic frequency repels instead of attracts, poisoning everything it touches. The solution requires purifying your motivations before applying the technique. It must emerge from abundance, not scarcity. From wholeness, not brokenness. The third error, the most subtle and dangerous, using early success as external validation. When you start seeing results, the temptation appears to derive your sense of worth from these new positive reactions. You're simply changing the source of your validation, rather than eliminating the need for it. That mistake sends you right back to where you started, sometimes even worse off than before. The correction requires constant vigilance. The results are the consequence of your centeredness, not its cause. The deeper truth nobody grasps This works perfectly on the surface. But there's a deeper truth here, one that separates those who merely apply techniques from those who transform their relational reality completely. The fundamental insight that few ever grasp is this: true attraction isn't something you provoke through action. It's something you release by removing all the behaviors that block it naturally. This understanding contradicts everything you've been taught. Our entire cultural narrative is constructed on the idea that you must do more, try harder, prove more, chase more. The entire dating and relationship industry is built on the premise of additive techniques. What to say, how to dress, which places to visit, how to impress. That entire paradigm is fundamentally catastrophically wrong. At an intermediate level, you might notice that additive techniques sometimes work, but only temporarily. A man can learn enough strategies to get phone numbers, even first dates, perhaps even short relationships. But inevitably, the underlying energy of pursuit emerges and destroys whatever initial attraction he managed to create artificially. The deeper truth proves radically different. Magnetic attraction is your natural state once you eliminate all the low-energy behaviors that most men constantly display. It's not something you build through effort. It's something that emerges naturally when you remove the block suppressing it. And this changes everything, because it transforms attraction from something you do into something you are. The universal male experience. When you stop trying that. Most powerful evidence of this principle is found in universal male experience, experiences you've had yourself, even if you didn't recognize their significance at the time. Think about that moment in your life when you were completely absorbed in a personal project, fully committed to your purpose, absolutely present in your mission, perhaps building something, creating something, pursuing a goal that mattered deeply to you. Paradoxically, it was precisely then that you experienced the highest level of feminine attraction without even trying to seek it. Without even noticing it at first, you witnessed this constantly around you. That friend who, after a painful breakup, dives entirely into his passion for music or business or athletics, not actively searching for new relationships, not even thinking about dating, and yet suddenly finds himself surrounded by female interest like never before in his life. That colleague who is so obsessed with his professional project that he barely has time to socialize, who seems almost oblivious to the social dynamics around him. And yet the women in the office constantly invent reasons to interact with him, to spend time in his presence. The pattern is undeniable once you see it. When you stop chasing attraction and immerse yourself completely in your life's purpose, attraction begins to chase you instead. Why? Because you're operating from an energetic frequency that communicates genuine abundance, not scarcity disguised as strategy. You're not performing. You're simply being. Think about that time when you were so focused on something important to you that you didn't even notice the looks of interest around you. The subtle signs women were sending. What did you feel internally? Complete immersion, total presence, no concern whatsoever for external reactions or approval. And the result? Precisely when you weren't seeking validation, it arrived abundantly, almost annoyingly. This is no coincidence. This is no random fluctuation. It's the manifestation of the fundamental principle. Genuine attraction is never chased. It's allowed. The transformation, before and after. When you internalize this truth completely, you experience a radical transformation in how you perceive interactions with women, with people in general. Before, you saw every conversation as an opportunity to impress, every message as a chance to maintain interest, every encounter as a stage to prove value. You were constantly performing, constantly calculating, constantly strategizing. Now you recognize every interaction as simply an exchange of authentic energies with no underlying agenda, no need for specific outcomes. You're present, you're genuine, you're unattached to results. The signs that you've truly integrated this understanding are unmistakable. You begin to experience a relational freedom that once seemed impossible, reserved for other men but never for you. You no longer feel anxiety when she doesn't reply immediately. Her response time becomes irrelevant to your emotional state. You no longer rearrange your schedule to create opportunities for interaction. Conversations flow naturally without conscious effort to keep them alive, like rivers finding their course. Situations that once made you insecure become simply neutral contexts for expressing your authenticity. And most transformatively, You begin to attract a level of feminine intensity that once seemed reserved only for other men. Men you couldn't understand. Men who seemed to have some secret you lacked. The master level, beyond technique. The master of this principle operates from an entirely different paradigm. While the technical practitioner applies the magnetic void as a conscious strategy, thinking about it, planning it, executing it deliberately, the master has integrated it so deeply into his identity that it no longer requires effort or thought. He's not applying a technique anymore. He's expressing his authentic nature. The difference is the same as that between an actor convincingly playing a role and someone who simply is the character, who embodies it completely. It's not what you do. It's what you are when you stop trying to be magnetic. The complete system. 3 practical tools. Now that you understand the depth of this principle, we're going to transform this understanding into a practical, complete system that you can implement immediately to become an irresistible gravitational center. Tool 1. Total presence. The first tool is called total presence, and it represents the foundation of the entire system. It's essentially the ability to be completely immersed in the present moment without filtering the experience through possible future outcomes or past failures. You use it specifically when interacting directly with her, when sharing social spaces, when communicating digitally, whenever you're in any form of contact. Here's how it works in detail. First, anchor your full attention in the present moment by consciously noticing the physical sensations in your body, escaping the constant mental dialogue that usually dominates your awareness. Feel your feet on the ground, your breath moving in and out, the temperature of the air around you. Then maintain steady but relaxed eye contact without breaking it too soon out of nervousness, and without holding it artificially long to seem intense. Natural, genuine eye contact that communicates presence. Finally, listen with complete attention, responding to what she actually says, not to what you rehearsed saying in your mind, not to what you think will impress her. For example, when she asks a question like, "What are you looking for right now?" you respond directly from your authentic truth without calculating what answer might increase your chances. I'm building a business I'm passionate about and open to genuine connections that add something meaningful to my life. The effect is immediate. She perceives authenticity as real value, not performance. Within minutes, her body language begins showing clear signs of emotional openness, leaning in, maintaining eye contact, genuine smiles. Tool 2. Purpose centrality. The second tool is purpose centrality, and it represents the energetic core of your natural attraction, the sun at the center of your personal solar system. This tool reorients your center of gravity from external validation to your personal mission. You use it constantly, not only during romantic interactions, but as the foundation of your entire life structure. It works by first identifying your authentic central purpose, not one fabricated to impress others, but the real driving force of your life. What would you pursue even if no one ever knew about it? What matters to you beyond social approval? Then you consciously align your daily decisions with that purpose, creating total congruence between what you claim to value and how you actually live. Your actions match your words, match your values. Finally, you learn to derive your primary satisfaction from progress in your mission, not from external reactions. Your sense of accomplishment comes from within. When she asks, "Why didn't you text me yesterday?" you respond naturally from this center. "I was completely immersed finishing the project I told you about. I lost track of time." It's not an excuse. It's not a strategy. It's simply the truth of a man centered in his purpose. The result is paradoxical, yet consistent. She feels stronger attraction precisely because your world doesn't revolve around her attention. You're not orbiting around her. She's orbiting around you. Tool 3. Strategic void. The third tool is strategic void, and it represents the catalytic element that accelerates the entire process, the spark that ignites the fire. This tool deliberately creates spaces of absence that activate the feminine instinct to pursue. You use it specifically when you feel the impulse to chase, when the interaction becomes predictable, or when you need to recalibrate the energetic dynamic between you. It works by first consciously recognizing every pursuit impulse before acting on it. You feel the urge to send that text, to check if she's online, to reach out. and you simply notice it without immediately acting. Then instead of following that impulse, you redirect that energy toward your central purpose and mission. You take that urge to contact her and channel it into your work, your passion, your goals. Finally, you allow that empty space to exist without filling it prematurely. Trusting the natural process of attraction, you let the silence sit there, uncomfortable as it might feel initially. When you would normally send 3 consecutive messages because she hasn't replied, you apply the strategic void by redirecting yourself completely toward your current project, allowing digital silence to exist without the anxious urge to fill it. The result defies conventional intuition. When she finally responds, her emotional investment has increased significantly. She's thinking about you more, wondering about you, feeling that pull towards you. Nature abhors a vacuum. So does feminine attraction. Your 7-day implementation protocol. Now I'll give you a surgical plan for the next 7 days that will transform these principles into your new reality. This isn't abstract theory. It's an immediate implementation protocol with specific daily objectives. Days 1 to 2. Total presence only. During the first 2 days, your only focus is applying total presence in every meaningful interaction. Don't try to apply the entire system simultaneously. Just this single tool. Each time you interact with a woman you find attractive. This will happen at least 3 times during these 2 days. Whether in person or digitally, you consciously apply the 3 components. Physical anchoring in the present moment. Authentic eye contact. Complete listening without filtering through desired outcomes. Here's what you'll notice. Initial discomfort with silence on the first day. A greater capacity to remain present without filling conversational gaps. On the second day, you'll feel strangely vulnerable at first, as if emotionally exposed. But after 4 or 5 applications, you'll experience an unexplainable conversational freedom. Women will respond with visibly greater emotional openness. Pay close attention, especially to how their body language changes. It's the most reliable indicator of effectiveness. Days 3 to 4. Adding purpose centrality. On days 3 and 4, you add purpose centrality while maintaining the first tool. Now you're operating with 2 active elements of the system. When you feel the impulse to rearrange your schedule to create opportunities for interaction, stop. Maintain the integrity of your purpose instead. You not only apply total presence in existing interactions, but also refuse to modify your life structure for external validation. The combination creates a congruence that becomes subconsciously magnetic. Here the game visibly changes because you're communicating an entirely different message at the energetic level. You'll notice an initial sense of loss of control within yourself, a shift in how the women who interest you react to your presence, and most importantly, a reconfiguration in the dynamic of pursuit. Who pursues whom begins to shift. If you feel specific discomfort when keeping your personal commitments instead of creating artificial availability, that's precisely the sign that it's working. Adjust the intensity of implementation if the internal resistance feels too strong, but don't abandon it. Days 5 to 7, integration with strategic void. Days 5, 6, and 7 are for refinement and integration of the third tool, strategic void, thus completing the system. Now you operate with all 3 tools fully integrated. A woman doesn't reply to your message for hours? You apply strategic void by immersing yourself in your purpose. Someone attracts your attention at a social event? You maintain total presence without agenda while honoring your purpose centrality. You feel the impulse to pursue someone with whom the conversation flows. You choose strategically between your tools based on the specific context. Observe carefully how your emotional baseline begins to shift, how the initiation dynamics transform, how the energetic quality of your interactions evolves. Adjust the implementation of each tool based on the reactions you observe. If a woman who normally responds slowly begins initiating conversations, it means the strategic void is working correctly, and you must maintain it. At this stage, you'll experience a tangible transformation in your relational dynamics. It's not imagination. It's not subjective interpretation. It's a measurable change in who initiates contact, who invests more emotionally, who pursues whose attention. 3 critical errors in implementation, but now, maximum attention. There are 3 critical errors that can completely sabotage everything you've built during this week of implementation. Error 1. Premature complacency. Falling into premature complacency when you begin seeing results. It seems harmless. You're succeeding, why worry? But in reality, it's devastating. It happens especially when a woman you deeply desire starts showing clear signs of attraction. The unmistakable indicator that you're falling into this error. You gradually begin returning to pursuit patterns, justifying them as exceptions. This situation is different. She's worth the extra effort. Just this once won't hurt. Immediate consequence: loss of magnetic momentum. Medium-term consequence: complete regression to the original dynamic you're trying to escape. The specific correction is discipline to maintain the structure of the system, especially when results are positive. Success is precisely when you need this framework most. Error 2. Confusing strategic absence with control. Confusing temporary strategic absence with relational power. This occurs when you experience the power of strategic void and begin to derive emotional satisfaction from perceived control over her reactions. You start enjoying the fact that she's pursuing, that she's investing more, that you have power over her interest. This creates a toxic energy, imperceptible to you, but completely transparent to her. The solution requires brutal honesty with yourself. The objective is never control. It's liberation from low energy patterns to allow for authentic connection. You're not trying to manipulate her. You're trying to be genuine. Error 3. Mechanical application. Using these tools as external techniques instead of integrating them as an expression of identity. This is the most insidious error because it can work temporarily, creating the illusion of success before everything collapses. The warning sign is clear. You implement the system mechanically as something you do rather than something you are. You're following a script rather than expressing your nature. The consequence is energetic incongruence that cancels all benefits. She might not consciously recognize what's wrong, but she'll feel something is off. Something is performed rather than authentic. The fundamental correction is to transform each tool from a conscious technique into a natural expression of your new relational identity. This takes time. More than 7 days, but the 7-day protocol begins this transformation. The ultimate truth: internal transformation. Before we conclude this journey, there's something crucial you must understand about this entire system. Something that ties everything together. True transformation doesn't occur in how women perceive you. It occurs in how you perceive yourself. Let's recap, not as theoretical summary, but as the 4 pillars that now define your new relational reality. First pillar: every time you chase external validation, you subconsciously communicate a devastating message of personal scarcity that destroys attraction at its deepest root. This isn't opinion, it's neurological reality. Second pillar: the technique of magnetic. Void completely reverses this dynamic by eliminating all pursuit behaviors and redirecting your energy toward your authentic central purpose. You stop chasing her and start building yourself. Third pillar: true attraction isn't something you build through tactics or strategies. It's a natural state that emerges when you remove all low energy behaviors that constantly block it. You're not adding, you're subtracting. Fourth pillar: the complete system of 3 tools: total presence, purpose centrality, and strategic void creates a relational architecture where feminine attraction becomes an inevitable consequence, not a goal to be chased. These 4 pillars aren't abstract theory. They're the practical architecture of your authentic personal power. And now you possess the complete map. He who chases will always be chased by scarcity. He who attracts will always be pursued by abundance. Your challenge: the next 24 hours. Now comes your challenge. And it begins right now, not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready. Within the next 24 hours, a situation will arise in which you'll feel that primitive impulse to pursue feminine validation. It might be a message notification that takes too long to answer. It might be a casual encounter with someone who attracts you. It might be a digital opportunity to initiate contact with someone new. When that moment comes, and you'll know exactly when. Because you'll feel that unmistakable urge to act immediately just to get a response. I want you to apply the strategic void in its purest form. Not a diluted or partial version. The complete version I've shown you. You don't need to announce that you're testing something new. You don't need to explain it to anyone. That's precisely the beauty of this system. It's invisible to everyone except you. Simply recognize the impulse to pursue. Redirect that energy toward your central purpose, and allow the empty space to exist without trying to fill it prematurely. Because when you do this, 3 specific things will happen. First, you'll feel an immediate sense of reclaimed personal power, like something that was taken from you has been returned. Second, you'll experience an emotional freedom you've never known before, liberation from the constant need for her response, her approval, her attention. Third, you'll observe a reaction completely different from anything you've ever provoked. Her investment will increase. Her interest will intensify. Her pursuit will begin. This is your moment of ignition, your opportunity to prove to yourself, not to me, not to anyone else, that these principles aren't academic theories floating in some philosophical void. They're relational laws as consistent and undeniable as gravity itself. After implementation, what happens next? After you implement it, I want you to reflect on exactly how your emotional state changed during the process. Notice precisely what difference you felt when operating from centrality instead of pursuit. The shift is subtle at first, but profound once you recognize it. Most men report a sensation they describe as weight lifting off their shoulders, a release of tension they didn't even know they were carrying. Others describe it as finally exhaling after holding their breath for years. Some simply say they felt like themselves again, perhaps for the first time in a long time. Whatever you experience, pay attention to it. That feeling is your compass pointing toward your authentic power. The declaration, "He who attracts does not chase now," comes the declaration, your public commitment to this new identity. If you've truly understood the transformative essence of this message, if you're not merely part of the passive majority who consume content without integrating it, then declare it. He who attracts does not chase. This isn't simply a comment or a phrase to type and forget. It's a declaration of identity, a line drawn in the sand of your life. It shows that you didn't just spend time consuming information, but that you grasped the essence and committed to transformation. This is our code, our signal of mutual recognition. I'll know exactly who truly understood and who merely let their eyes drift over these words without allowing them to penetrate their consciousness. The next level. What awaits since you've reached the end of this journey with me? There's something I've deliberately not mentioned until now, something that connects to everything we've explored, but from an angle that will completely transform your understanding of emotional intimacy. In the next chapter of this work, I'll reveal what I call the protocol of inverse scaling, the paradox of proximity that builds directly on the foundation we've established today. It involves a counterintuitive principle about strategic vulnerability that most men never discover. It explains why the men who seem least interested in commitment inevitably end up in the deepest, most passionate relationships. Why the man who appears most emotionally independent becomes most desired. Why distance can create more intimacy than proximity, but that's a subject for another time. I say no more now, because revealing it prematurely would compromise your current implementation. You need to master this foundation first before building the next level upon it. The gravitational metaphor. Full circle. Remember the gravitational metaphor I mentioned at the beginning of this journey? Now you fully understand its deeper meaning, the layers beneath the surface. It was never about passive attraction, never about sitting back and doing nothing while hoping women would notice you. It was about becoming such a powerful gravitational center that you alter the relational orbits around you without any visible effort, without strain, without exhaustion. The sun doesn't chase the planets. The planets chase the sun, unable to resist its pull. The ocean doesn't pursue the moon. The moon pulls the tides through invisible forces the water cannot resist. You no longer need to chase to feel valuable. You've become the kind of man who naturally attracts what he once pursued desperately, breathlessly, hopelessly. The final truth, who you've always been, and when you operate from this authentic centrality, the entire relational world reorganizes around your personal gravity. Not because you've become someone new, but because you've remembered who you always were beneath the layers of cultural programming and social conditioning. Pursuit was always an illusion, a trick you were taught, a trap you fell into, a cage you built around yourself without realizing it. Magnetism was always your nature, your birthright, your true essence. The authentic power that existed before anyone told you that you needed to chase, to prove, to perform. The men throughout history who possessed this understanding, the ones who seemed to effortlessly command respect, desire and loyalty, they weren't born with some special gift you lack. They simply discovered this truth earlier, or perhaps they never forgot it in the first place. Your new beginning. This moment right now represents the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The end of the pursuing, pleading, performing version of yourself. The beginning of the centered, magnetic, powerful version that was always there, waiting to be uncovered. The ancient strategists who concealed this knowledge in their private writings did so not out of cruelty, but out of recognition that certain truths are too powerful for those unprepared to wield them responsibly. They understood that this knowledge in the wrong hands, in the hands of men motivated by revenge, resentment, or the desire for control, becomes toxic. But in the hands of men motivated by authenticity, by genuine connection, by the desire to express their true nature without masks or pretense, it becomes transformative, not just for them, but for everyone in their orbit. The ripple effect. Because here's what most men don't realize. When you transform your relationship with feminine attraction, you transform your relationship with everything. Your professional life shifts. Your friendships deepen. Your sense of self strengthens. Your entire experience of reality reorganizes itself around this new center of gravity you've established. The scarcity mindset that drove your pursuit of women. It was driving your pursuit of success, approval, status, and validation in every area of your life. The abundance mindset that now powers your magnetic presence. It will radiate outward into every domain of your existence. This isn't just about women. It never was. It's about reclaiming your authentic power as a human being. The power to exist fully in your own reality without needing constant external validation to confirm your worth. The path forwards. Path forward from here is both simple and challenging. Simple because the principles are clear, the tools are defined, the protocol is established. Challenging because implementation requires you to act against every instinct society has programmed into you. Every time you feel that pull to chase, you'll need to redirect. Every time you feel that urge to prove yourself, you'll need to center. Every time you feel that anxiety about her response, you'll need to remember your purpose. At first, this will require conscious effort, deliberate choice, constant vigilance. You'll slip back into old patterns occasionally. Everyone does. The key is recognizing it quickly and redirecting yourself back to center. But gradually, over weeks and months, these conscious techniques will become unconscious habits. The effort will fade. The centeredness will become natural. You won't be applying the magnetic void. You'll be living it, embodying it, expressing it naturally in every interaction. And when that transformation completes, when the technique becomes your nature, you'll look back on who you were before this moment and barely recognize him. That desperate, pursuing, approval-seeking version of yourself will seem like a stranger, like someone you once knew, but have long since outgrown. The community of centered men. You're not alone on this journey. Throughout history, across cultures, spanning generations, certain men have discovered this truth and lived by it. They recognized each other through subtle signs, a particular quality of presence, a specific type of centeredness, an unmistakable energy that communicated abundance rather than scarcity. Today, in our modern world, this community still exists. Men who understand that pursuit repels and presence attracts. Men who have built their lives around purpose rather than validation. Men who have reclaimed their natural magnetic power. When you declare "he who attracts does not chase," you're joining this lineage, this brotherhood, this community of centered men who refuse to live in emotional scarcity. The ultimate freedom this system provides isn't freedom from rejection. Rejection still happens. Even to the most magnetic men, it's freedom from the emotional devastation of rejection, from the identity crisis it once triggered, from the desperate need to avoid it at all costs. When you're centered in your purpose, when your worth comes from within, when your life has gravitational pull of its own, Rejection becomes simply information rather than identity-crushing catastrophe. She's not interested? Fine, your purpose continues. Your mission proceeds. Your center holds. This freedom transforms everything. You can approach without fear because rejection doesn't threaten your core. You can express interest without anxiety because her response doesn't determine your value. You can be authentic without masks because approval isn't your objective. And paradoxically, this freedom from needing the outcome dramatically increases your chances of getting the outcome. Because women sense this freedom, this centeredness, this abundance, and they find it irresistible. One final reminder, before you go forth to implement this system, one final reminder, this is not manipulation. This is not strategy designed to trick women into attraction. This is not a game to be played or a contest to be won. This is the removal of behaviors that block your natural magnetism. This is the expression of your authentic power. This is the alignment of your actions with your purpose. This is you becoming more genuinely yourself, not less. Any technique used with manipulative intent, with resentment as fuel, with control as the goal, will fail. Not because the technique doesn't work, but because the underlying energy betrays the intention. Use this knowledge responsibly. Use it to create genuine connections, not to collect conquests. Use it to express your authentic nature, not to craft a false persona. Use it to build a life of abundance, not to compensate for feelings of scarcity. Now go and manifest. Now go and manifest who you truly are. Not who society told you to be. Not who past rejections convinced you were. Not who desperate pursuit made you become. But who you actually are when all the layers of programming fall away. When all the scarcity-driven behaviors cease. When all the pursuit patterns dissolve. The centered man. The purposeful man. The magnetic man. The man who exists so fully in his own reality that others feel compelled to enter his orbit. That man was always there. You're not creating him. You're uncovering him, revealing him, allowing him to emerge from beneath the accumulated debris of years of poor advice and cultural conditioning. The gravitational center that attracts effortlessly. The authentic power that commands respect naturally. The magnetic presence that draws desire inevitably. That's who you are. That's who you've always been. That's who you're becoming again, starting right now, in this moment, with the next choice you make. The choice to stop chasing and start attracting. The choice to stop proving and start being. The choice to stop performing and start expressing. Pursuit was always an illusion. Magnetism was always your nature. Now go and reclaim it.